Now, you can keep using this composition if you would like, but I'm going to create a separate composition and then copy and paste my layers from this one into that one, just so that I can preserve the animation that I've done in this composition. Here's what I'm going to do. Come to the Composition drop-down menu and select New Composition. I'm going to use all the same settings that I had from the last one, and I'm going to say OK. And you can see I now have a new composition, but I'm going to come back to the very first one, and I'm going to select my layers by clicking on the top one and holding down the Shift button and clicking on the bottom one, and I'm going to copy them. I'm going to come back to Comp 2, and now I'm going to paste those layers here. Everything was pasted except for the timeline markers. Now I've preserved these layers if I want to do another animation later. But I'm going to come back to Comp 1 and I'm going to proceed with my animation here. First, I'm going to position my current time indicator over top of the beginning of my first word. Now I want you to imagine for a second what it is that we want to do here. I would like this word to come in from the side and then hit its mark, do a little bit of follow through, and then exit. So we are going to be animating the position property. Let's reveal the position property for this layer. I'm going to come over here to the Layers panel and click on the Disclosure triangle. And underneath that, you can see I have this property called Transform. I'm going to reveal its properties by clicking there. And you can see I now have revealed the main properties that we can animate here in After Effects. But I only need to animate the position property. It would certainly help my screen real estate if I could close some of these other options, if I didn't have to see the properties I'm not currently animating. Well, we can do that. And here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to remember the acronym TRAPS. T-R-A-P-S. Each one of those letters is a keyboard shortcut that opens up an individual property. The T opens up opacity or transparency. The R opens up the rotation property. A anchor point. P, position, and S, scale. If the only property that I want to animate is the position property, I can save myself a lot of space on my screen if I just press P on my keyboard, like so. Now I want you to consider that the word is currently where I want it to be in my timeline. This would be a good time to create a keyframe for my position property by coming over here and clicking once on the stopwatch. I've now told After Effects that I want this object to be in this place at this time, but I need a bit of time for it to make its entrance. I'm going to have to come here to my layer indicator and drag it to the left to give that layer a bit of time on screen to get where it needs to go. I'm now going to move my current time indicator back along the timeline. Essentially, I'm going to be animating in reverse. Finally, to finish this animation, I'm going to change the value for the property that we're animating, the position property. I can do that in a couple different ways, but I'm going to do it over here in the Layers panel by clicking on the position values for X and Y. X refers to the horizontal position of the object, and Y refers to the vertical position. I'm just going to click and drag to the left on this X value in my position property. And as I drag to the left, that object moves over. If I hold down the Shift button as I click and drag over that value, you can see I can actually move that a little bit quicker. You can see I've now created an animation for my position property for that first word.
Person.
But now I can tell by the evenly spaced dots on my motion path here that this animation is currently linear. The problem with linear motion is that it's unnatural motion. And even though it may be very quick and subtle, an animation made up of unnatural motion is unpleasant to watch. We're going to add a little easing to these two keyframes using our Motion 2 panel to make this look a little bit more natural. In order to apply that easing, I'm going to select both of these keyframes. Now I want this word to come in with a little bit of force. And since it's going to do an overshoot, that means it should be moving very quickly at the end. We call that an ease in because the animation is moving more slowly at the beginning of the animation. This top slider in the Motion 2 panel is what controls the ease in effect. I'm going to just click and drag that all the way to the right. If I click on my spacebar to play that,
Person.
you can see that it is moving very quickly. But now I'm going to add the follow-through effect. I'm going to click off here so neither of my keyframes is currently selected. Now I'm just going to select this second keyframe. With that second keyframe selected, I'm going to come over to my Motion 2 panel and I'm going to click once on Excite. It doesn't look like anything has happened, but the numbers for my position property have gone from blue to red. That's an indicator that there's now a little bit of code controlling the position of this graphic. I'm going to bring my current time indicator back to the beginning and press the space bar to see what that effect looks like.
Person, woman.
Well, there we go. We have the follow-through effect that we were looking for, except it's a little bit too bouncy. But we have the ability to control the amount of bounce that is applied through this Excite effect. Again, I'm just going to make sure that my keyframe is selected, and I'm going to come over to the window drop-down menu. If I come down far enough, you can see I have something here called Effect Controls. I'm going to click on that, and you can see that the Effects Control panel resides over here with the Project panel. There are tabs across the top here that allow me to choose them independently. But now you can see I have some controls here that allow me to affect how much bounce there is on this graphic. Currently, the overshoot is set to 20. I'm going to take that down to something closer to 10. If I click on it, I can type in the value. For the bounce, I'm going to take that down to something like 10 as well. And for friction, I'm going to leave that for the time being. And let's see what that does. Again, I'm just going to bring my current time indicator back to the beginning and press the space bar.
Person, woman.
Now that was not bad. I like how it overshot once and then just slowly slid back into its resting spot. And now it needs to do something. All it needs to do, though, is to sit there for long enough to be read. And I'm going to give it up until about here, because this is the point at which I want to begin the exit process before the next word comes on. So what I need to do is put a new keyframe for its position value right here. I can do that in a number of different ways. The way I'm going to do it is just to use the keyframe navigator over here on the layers panel and click right there on the diamond shape. And now I've got a keyframe right there. So now that I have a keyframe for that property, I'm going to move my current time indicator along my timeline. And now I'm going to change the value for the property that I'm animating here. And I'm going to drag to the right and hold down my shift button as I do. And that's going to move that off screen like so. Let's see what that looks like.
Person, woman.
Now, I'm not all that keen on the easing in between this keyframe and this keyframe. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to select both of them like that. I'm going to come back to my Motion 2 panel. Again, I'm going to apply this first slider, this ease in slider, so that when this exits the screen, it's going to start moving slowly and then pick up speed as it moves across the screen. I'm just going to click on that once like that. And it's now applied that easing. If I want to see what that looks like, press the space bar.
Person, woman.
There we go. That feels fairly natural. It comes in quickly
Person,
and overshoots
woman,
and then slides
man.
back off. Okay. Let's do our next word.